This is such a huge honor. I didn't expect this because this is actually my first teaching case. Thanks to Hubert who introduced me to help me with writing the case, and then also thank my General Motor team, the case writing team. So it was my very first teaching case, and so I didn't expect that, but I was feeling very happy about it because this really shows we can transform industry practices and our research into something that's useful in the classroom. So very happy to receive it, and I would like to thank Ivey Publisher for giving us this award.
Yeah, so myself, I'm also very excited as well. Being a professor, I really want to have an impact to the students. And I'm very happy to know that the cases that I'm working on, so it's not only used within Ivey, but then also used different places as well. So that my desire is that not only the Ivey student, but then people around the group, so they can learn from some of the lessons from the GM suppliers innovation as well.
Very good question. As someone who just moved to Texas, I'm still very new to this state. But before actually last week, I was working for Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan for 12 years. So that's the heart of the automotive industry. So it's not hard to imagine, every day my student, my colleagues, my friends that work for auto company. And I've been trying to find cases that I can use in the classroom to teach students about automotive industry, which is very unique. They are not one industry. They're really the industry of industries, because you imagine you can find every single thing it's not exaggeration in the car, pretty much, right? So the complexity and then the scale and then the determinant, the standard for safety, for sustainability is so high for the industry. So it's very complex there, how they design their supply chain, how they select suppliers, especially for innovation, which is what this case is about, have not really been put into teaching cases. So, and then we had this great partnership with General Motors by asking them to sponsor our annual case competitions. Since I joined Wayne State 2011, it has been a very successful event. And every year, General Motors, they will put together a case teaching, a case writing team together, and working with not just General Motors and also their suppliers by putting up a case together for our students to go through during the case competition. So during the first few years, whenever after the competition finished, we just let the case sitting there. So I feel like that's really a waste of everyone's time. It's such great cases, so we need to publish it. And then so this one was used in 2016, and so we started to try to put this case into a teaching case by adding teaching notes, and by change it, and of course removing all the confidential information. Working closely with our GM team. And that has become this first one, which is a success. So after this, we have published 2 more, and we're still in the process of getting other cases published. So we hope just by having those teaching cases, the world, particularly the future managers, which most of them are students of business school, can learn about the automotive industry, can understand the complexity, the risk, all the details that you need to put together when you design the supply chain for the automotive industry.
Yeah, so I'll be very agree with what Tingting have shared. So myself is that so Tingting and I have been working together on research project for a few years. So then based on my personal communication with her, so I'm aware that the Wayne State do have these cases and they are interested to get published. So myself, I'm working with the Ivey Publishing for a few years, so I know some of the inside for how to get a good case. So then I was reading the cases and trying to understand the background and to see the decision point, the trade-off, and basically the case have all the good ingredients over there. So that for myself, so my role is just to be as supportive as a cheerleader as possible, to suggest that, oh, let's do it. And then so that the information is not only for the Wayne State student, but then for everyone around the globe. Hopefully through the Ivey Publishing reach, so that many people in different places, they can learn the lesson that the Wednesday student can learn. So that is like my desire as well.
So I might be biased because this case is actually right in the heart of my research, which is select supplier for innovation. I'm an innovation researcher, and then I see supplier as that a big resource for customers to innovate, right? So right from beginning when writing the case, I feel very passionate about the case because I feel this is important the area that has not received enough managerial attention because people know how to select supplier for lower cost, for better quality, for reliable delivery, even for resilience, right? Even for sustainability. But when you ask managers, how do you select supplier for innovation? They look at you like, what are you talking about? What do you mean by innovation, right? So it's very blank because innovation is something for engineers, it might be something very quantifiable, but for a purchasing manager graduating from business school, innovation is something very subjective, right? A supplier might be seen as very innovative in one case, might be seen as no value in another case. So when writing the case, I have that personal passion in it, which I think it's a huge thing when you're writing a teaching case. You want people to feel excited about it, so you want to be excited about it first. And then second thing is this case, because it has I think it has a very comprehensive set of factors involved, right? So although we are talking about old topic, supplier selection, but it does have both quantitative aspect and a very qualitative aspect. For those quantitative aspects, they very well relate to some of the basic things that you student need to learn from operations management, from supplier selection. Well, for the qualitative one, the more strategic consideration, that really goes into the longer term, like relationship building, and then, the risks that you easily quantify. So this case can be used for a variety of different purposes, or can fit with student at different level, like entry level undergraduate students, senior, or even graduate student. So I have got a lot of inquiries from my colleagues who use the case, and they actually have adapted to different part. Like they even just split the case, like one part for undergraduate student and another part for graduate student. And you can actually mix and match. And then, so that gives the faculty a lot of freedom in terms of how you want to use the case. Because the case really itself has a lot of components that's very modular. So you don't have to use the whole case, which actually involve a lot of analysis, right? So I think that's another thing. I think it's really help to spread its usage, because faculty can see, oh, okay, I can see how this case, this part can fit into my class or fit into my need, instead of just like a big chunk and which you don't know where to put in your existing curriculum.
Yeah, I also like to add, so a few other features that makes it really interesting as well. The first one would be the company name is really famous, like GM, everyone in the world also knows about that. The other thing would be that, like I saw, not many cases, so I have done a search, not many cases that is available to touch upon the supplier innovation project. So therefore, we see the need and that we need someone to help to write those cases. And the last point I'd like to add would be the teaching notes, because from like at the end of the day, it's the faculty that decide which case to be used and which case not to be used. And that the teaching notes is very helpful for the faculty to decide. So that the faculty knows, oh, this is how I am going to teach the case. And that the teaching notes here is quite comprehensive. So therefore, I find that that helps the faculty such that they know, they can vision about if they were to use this case, they know how to structure the class accordingly.
This case is really interdisciplinary and then industry university collaboration, because the first draft of this case was 100% written by the GM team and then their suppliers. So all the information, like the supplier and then the assumption and what they used, were the actual tools that the company actually used. So what we do here is really just to translate the case into a case that you can use in the classroom, which is different, but still the initial draft, all the assumption, all the formula does not come from my research, does not come from my office, but come from the practice. which again, I think is a very valuable information for students because that actually show them the real world. It's not something we imagine, like we kind of create. So that's another very important feature of the case. Yeah, I personally feel that's a very important character, not just in the case, but actually in practice. For my 12 years at Wednesday, I have witnessed this huge transition, like kind of initially when we have the majority of the students are male, and then we don't have many female students chose to be majoring in supply chain management. And then to the point that the student understand that actually, particularly as purchasing manager, female students do have a significant advantage in terms of this relationship management. I'm not saying like male student cannot manage relationship, but they can do other things better. But from the relationship, particularly like to detail, and then being you show sympathy to what supplier have been experienced, like just naturally female students have that advantage. And so I have witnessed a lot of students, more and more female students finding jobs in buyers or purchasing analysts, because companies see that they have that advantage, which encourage more female students to apply to become supply chain major. So I think in this case, although we didn't have a question specifically about this gender, but I think having this purchasing manager being a female, that's a signal. Female students they can be a very successful purchasing manager, because this particularly from a long-term trust building, relationship building perspective. Yeah, I remember. So this revision actually was related to the point that I mentioned earlier, is because we didn't know what information was disclosed, what was not. So we actually added some additional assumptions, like basic assumptions students need to know before they can analyze the case, to the case. And also, I remember we updated an Excel sheet that for students to work on based on the email that from like faculty who adopt the case, because they asked the question. They said, "Where do we find this information?" So then we realized that it's not online. Yeah, one thing I really like about the case is the global aspect of the case. If you read the case, you will know that the suppliers, they have different locations and different countries, which actually add some additional consideration beyond the money. They of course have financial implication, right? Your long lead time, and then takes longer time, it's higher risk. But in addition to that, all the tax, import, export, and then additional consideration from a relationship and culture, like are we culturally aligned, right? So all those I think are very important consideration in the current age where we talk about this new norm in globalization. Like, are we still doing global sourcing, or we are doing more friendshoring? Like different terms are coming up. But I think this case can really show you that when you're considering things for innovation, where this IP, like who owns the IP for innovation comes up, you will have to consider the location and where the supplier is headquartered in. And is the supplier willing to share the IP with you? And if they're not willing to, is the IP protected in the location where the supplier is operating, which are all very new topic. But companies are starting to realize that, oops, that's important if you operate globally, if you source globally. So I think that's one thing that I think really, I feel excited about it, but this case have not go deeper into that. So I hope in the future we can continue to write a case just emphasizing this global aspect of sourcing of supply chain management.
So I've been using these cases to teach case writing workshop. Okay, so I'm teaching other faculty how to write cases, and then I really like this case. The reason is that so we start off this case with a big picture about what is going on within this industry, and then to talk about some of the challenges, and then we have a few pages of specifically talking about the options. And for example, supply number 1, 2, 3, 4, not only from a quantitative aspect, but also from a qualitative aspect. So therefore, if I were to encourage first-time author, they like to publish a case. So I find that this case would be a good, it's a good template for you to follow in order to write cases that have a nice structure, easy to be understood, and the faculty is likely to adopt. So that would be my thought on this case.